There's a common belief about living by the ocean in the United States. If you want a home with sea air in your lungs and sand between your toes, you'd better have a small fortune in the bank. Big-name coastal cities like San Diego, Miami, and Charleston dominate the headlines, where even modest condos can run into the high six figures, and single-family homes regularly push past $1 million. For most people, beach living feels like the ultimate luxury, something you rent for a week in summer rather than own for a lifetime. But the truth is, America's coastline is longer, more varied, and far more affordable than the glossy travel magazines and real estate reality shows would have you believe. Tucked away in overlooked corners of the country are small beach towns, where the cost of living doesn't feel like a punishment, and where buying a home is not just possible, but downright practical. In some of these places, median home prices are under $200,000. Others have the kind of low property taxes, utility costs, and insurance rates that make monthly expenses feel like they're missing a zero. These aren't ghost towns or crumbling fishing villages clinging to survival. They're vibrant communities, some rooted in maritime tradition, others thriving on tourism, and a few that remain stubbornly local despite their natural beauty. They offer the same Atlantic sunrises and Pacific sunsets you see in travel brochures, but without the life-draining mortgage. The sand is still soft, the waves still crash, and the ocean breeze still carries that salty tang. The only real difference is what's left in your bank account after you pay the bills. So let's dive in. Here are 3 of the most surprisingly affordable beach towns in America. Places where you can trade the dream of coastal living for the reality without signing your life away to the bank. Gulfport, Mississippi. Gulfport sits on the Gulf Coast, halfway between New Orleans and Mobile, and it's a living rebuttal to the idea that beach towns have to be financially out of reach. Known for its wide sandy beaches, palm-lined boulevards, and a laid-back southern pace, Gulfport offers all the visual cues of a pricier seaside destination, but with housing costs that still make you blink twice. Median home prices hover in the $180,000 to $200,000 range, with plenty of smaller properties and older homes coming in closer to $150,000. Condos near the water can sometimes be found for under $130,000, and fixer-uppers in established neighborhoods often dip below 6 figures entirely. For anyone used to Florida's Gulf Coast prices, the contrast is staggering. Gulfport's affordability isn't because it lacks amenities or beauty. The town has rebuilt and revitalized after major hurricanes, improving infrastructure and seawalls while maintaining its charm. The downtown area has restaurants, bars, galleries, and a growing craft beer scene, while the harbor and marina keep the connection to the sea alive. Gulfport is also home to the Mississippi Aquarium and a vibrant arts community that punches above its weight for a city this size. Living here means warm weather nearly year-round, easy access to New Orleans for cultural outings, and some of the lowest property taxes in the nation. The cost of living overall is roughly 15% below the national average, meaning your dollar stretches further, not just on housing, but on groceries, utilities, and entertainment. For beach lovers who want to keep their financial feet on solid ground, Gulfport is an easy win. Fort Pierce. Florida is famous for 2 things: beautiful beaches and astronomical real estate prices. But Fort Pierce, on the state's Treasure Coast, breaks that second stereotype. Often overshadowed by pricier neighbors like Vero Beach or Palm Beach, Fort Pierce has held on to both its old Florida charm and its relative affordability. Here, median home prices sit around $250,000, high compared to some inland towns, but remarkably low for Florida's Atlantic shoreline. Small single-family homes in good condition can be found for $200,000 to $230,000, while condos just steps from the beach occasionally list for under $180,000. For a state where waterfront property often starts in the millions, those numbers are almost shocking. Fort Pierce's affordability is partly due to its low-key vibe. It's not overrun with high-rise condos or luxury resorts, and it still feels like a working coastal town rather than a polished tourist hub. The downtown area has been steadily revitalized, with colorful murals, farmers markets, and small local businesses adding life to the streets. The historic Sunrise Theater hosts concerts and plays, while the waterfront marina remains a focal point for boaters and fishermen. The beaches here are less crowded than those further south, with long stretches of sand backed by dunes and sea oats. Outdoor lovers can also explore nearby state parks, wildlife refuges, and the Indian River Lagoon, one of the most biodiverse estuaries in North America. Throw in Florida's lack of state income tax, and Fort Pierce becomes even more appealing for retirees or remote workers looking to stretch their income without sacrificing the sunshine. Port Orford, Oregon. On the opposite coast, Oregon's rugged shoreline offers a completely different kind of beach town experience. Wild, windswept, and dramatically beautiful. Port Orford, located on the southern Oregon coast, is the oldest town on the state's coastline and one of the most affordable places to live by the Pacific Ocean. Median home prices here hover around $300,000, which might sound steep compared to some southern towns. But for West Coast oceanfront living, it's a bargain. Smaller homes and cottages can sometimes be found for $250,000 or less, and properties with direct ocean views are still attainable for under $400,000. Numbers that would be laughably low just a few hours north in Portland or Seattle. Port Orford's charm comes from its authenticity. This is still a working fishing port, with commercial boats launching directly into the Pacific from a rare dolly dock system. The town has no big box stores, no fast food chains, and very little in the way of tourist gloss. Instead, you get art galleries, local cafes, and miles of hiking trails leading to secluded beaches and cliffside viewpoints. Cape Blanco State Park, just north of town, offers lighthouse tours and panoramic ocean vistas that feel like something out of a nature documentary. The cost of living is lower than many other parts of the West Coast, and while wages tend to be modest, the community draws a mix of retirees, artists, and remote workers who value lifestyle over income. The weather can be cool and misty much of the year, but for those who find beauty in dramatic skies and the sound of waves pounding against rocky headlands, Port Orford is pure magic, and still within reach financially. Rockport, Texas Rockport, sits on the Texas Gulf Coast, just north of Corpus Christi, and it's one of those places that makes you question why more people aren't already living there. It has all the hallmarks of a postcard-worthy beach town: sailboats bobbing in the harbor, pelicans gliding low over the water, pastel-colored cottages along the shore, yet the housing prices remain shockingly grounded. Median home prices hover around $280,000, which for a coastal community in Texas is remarkably reasonable. Older two-bedroom homes and modest cottages often list for $200,000 to $230,000. And if you're open to a little cosmetic updating, fixer-uppers sometimes drop below $180,000. Even properties with direct waterfront views or private docks are often priced in the $350,000 to $400,000 range, which would be considered entry-level in many more famous beach markets. Rockport's appeal goes far beyond price tags. The town has a vibrant arts scene anchored by the Rockport Center for the Arts and hosts annual festivals that draw visitors from across the state. Birdwatching is big here, with the nearby Aransas National Wildlife Refuge providing winter habitat for the endangered whooping crane. Fishing is part of the DNA of the place. Locals fish off piers in the bay and offshore, and fresh seafood is always on the menu. The climate is mild in winter and warm in summer, though the Gulf Coast does carry hurricane risk, which can impact insurance rates. Still, Texas has no state income tax, and the overall cost of living is about 10% below the national average. For retirees, second home buyers, or anyone seeking a relaxed coastal lifestyle without the inflated prices, Rockport offers a winning combination of charm, culture, and affordability. Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Ocean Springs doesn't just offer affordable coastal living, it delivers a lifestyle that feels effortlessly curated, yet completely down to earth. Strolling through its oak-shaded streets, you get the sense that this is a place where people still take time to chat on their porches, where shop owners know your name, and where a trip to pick up groceries might turn into a 20-minute conversation with a neighbor. That small-town intimacy is rare in beach communities, many of which have been swallowed up by tourism-driven transients. Here, the balance between locals and visitors is just right, keeping the heart of the town beating year-round. Its reputation as an arts hub is well-earned. Ocean Springs is home to the Walter Anderson Museum of Art, celebrating the works of one of the Gulf Coast's most beloved painters, and its galleries range from contemporary studios to folk art shops tucked into historic buildings. The monthly art walk draws residents and tourists alike, turning downtown into an open-air festival of creativity. Live music, from blues to bluegrass, is a fixture in the evenings, with patios and courtyards offering the perfect backdrop for a slow coastal night. Despite its cultural richness, Ocean Springs hasn't lost touch with its natural surroundings. The beaches, framed by the calm waters of the Mississippi Sound, are perfect for wading, paddleboarding, or simply sitting with a book. The nearby Gulf Islands National Seashore, accessible by ferry or private boat, offers an escape into untouched nature. Miles of white sand, dunes, and wildlife, with barely another footprint in sight. From a practical standpoint, Ocean Springs' affordability stretches beyond home prices. Mississippi's lack of a state income tax on certain retirement income, combined with modest property taxes and an overall cost of living well below the national average, makes it an appealing choice for retirees, remote workers, and young families alike. While insurance rates are a consideration, as with most Gulf Coast towns, they're generally lower here than in parts of Florida or Louisiana, and the savings on property cost more than offset them for many buyers. Its proximity to Biloxi is another strength. Within a 10-minute drive, you have access to major grocery chains, healthcare facilities, entertainment venues, and a regional airport. This connection to a larger urban center means you can enjoy the slower pace of Ocean Springs without sacrificing convenience. And if you crave more extensive shopping or travel options, New Orleans is just a 90-minute drive away, making weekend getaways effortless. What really sets Ocean Springs apart is its ability to feel timeless. While development has slowly increased, the town has resisted the urge to overbuild or fill its shoreline with high-rise condos. The result is a human-scaled coastal community where the views are still framed by live oaks and historic storefronts instead of concrete and glass. For anyone who's been priced out of more famous beach destinations but refuses to compromise on charm, Ocean Springs stands as proof that you can have both, a rich cultural life and a sandy shoreline, without breaking the bank. Atlantic, North Carolina. While most people think of the Outer Banks when they picture North Carolina beaches, and then quickly think of the sky-high prices, the state's coastline hides a handful of affordable gems. Atlantic, a small fishing village near the end of the Core Sound, is one of them. Median home prices here are under $200,000, and it's not unusual to find small, move-in-ready houses for $150,000 to $170,000. Waterfront or waterview properties do push higher, but even then, you can often get a place with direct access to the Sound or marsh for under $300,000. That's a rare find on the East Coast in 2025. Atlantic isn't a bustling tourist hub, and that's precisely the point. This is a community where fishing boats still head out daily, where neighbors swap fresh shrimp and oysters, and where the biggest event of the week might be a church fish fry. It's quiet, authentic, and deeply connected to the water. The surrounding area offers access to Cape Lookout National Seashore, with miles of undeveloped beaches and the famous lighthouse. Kayaking, boating, and fishing dominate local recreation, and the slower pace means you'll often have stretches of shoreline all to yourself. While amenities are limited in town, Morehead City and Beaufort, both with more shops, restaurants and services, are less than an hour's drive away. Living here does require some adaptation. The nearest major airport is in New Bern, about 90 minutes away, and hurricane season is a reality. But for those seeking a low-cost, deeply local beach life that hasn't been overrun by tourists or developers, Atlantic offers something rare and rewarding. Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Some towns on the Gulf Coast seem frozen in time, and Bay St. Louis is one of them, but not because it's been left behind. Instead, this small Mississippi city, about an hour east of New Orleans, has managed to hold on to its historic charm and laid-back pace while slowly becoming one of the most appealing and still affordable coastal destinations in the region. The median home price here is roughly $270,000, which is impressive given that much of the housing stock is within walking or biking distance to the water. Smaller bungalows and cottages list in the $200,000 to $230,000 range, and condos or townhomes occasionally drop below $180,000. Even homes with water views or proximity to the beach can be had for well under $400,000, something almost unheard of in more commercialized beach towns. Bay Street Louis blends old and new seamlessly. Its historic Old Town district has art galleries, antique stores, and family-owned cafes that spill out onto shaded sidewalks. The marina and waterfront park are active without being overrun, and the city's calendar is dotted with community festivals, live music nights, and seasonal markets. One of the town's strongest selling points is its location. It's far enough from major urban centers to avoid inflated prices, yet close enough to New Orleans for day trips. The nearby beaches aren't crowded, even in summer, and while they may not have the emerald green clarity of Florida's panhandle, they make up for it in peace and space. The cost of living here is about 14% below the national average. Property taxes are low, and Mississippi's warm climate means minimal heating costs in winter. Hurricanes remain a factor, but the town has invested heavily in protective infrastructure since Hurricane Katrina. For those looking for a welcoming, artsy, and budget-friendly spot on the Gulf Bay Street, Lewis quietly delivers. Lincoln City, Oregon. Lincoln City's charm lies in its ability to combine small-town friendliness with a level of year-round livability that many coastal communities struggle to maintain. While some West Coast beach towns essentially hibernate in the off-season, Lincoln City remains active and welcoming throughout the year. Locals don't just tolerate winter, they embrace it. The storm-watching culture here is so ingrained that some hotels and vacation rentals offer storm watcher packages, complete with ocean view rooms, hot drinks, and cozy fireplaces. It's a reminder that this isn't just a summer town. It's a place where the sea is part of daily life in all its moods. The economy benefits from a steady mix of tourism, fishing, and service industries, which helps stabilize the local housing market. While summer visitors bring a welcome boost to shops and restaurants, the community isn't entirely dependent on them. Many residents work remotely, taking advantage of Oregon's growing broadband infrastructure, or commute to nearby towns for employment. This blend of industries has helped keep Lincoln City more resilient than many coastal areas that live or die by seasonal tourism alone. From a real estate perspective, the market is varied, offering something for different lifestyles and budgets. In-town properties put you within walking distance of the beach, shops, and cafes, while homes tucked into the surrounding hills often have sweeping ocean views without the premium price tag you'd see in California or even parts of Washington. Some neighborhoods, like Rhodes End to the north, feel almost like secluded beach villages, while others, closer to the city center, are more lively and community-oriented. There's also a strong emphasis on outdoor living. Residents make full use of the 7 miles of beach, whether it's clamming at low tide, surfing on a good swell, or simply watching the gray whales migrate offshore in spring and fall. Devil's Lake provides a change of pace with calm waters for kayaking, paddleboarding, and fishing. And if you drive just a few minutes inland, you'll find hiking trails through Sitka spruce forests, hidden waterfalls, and quiet campgrounds. Culturally, Lincoln City punches above its weight. The Cultural Center hosts art exhibits, concerts, and workshops, while the annual Kite Festival draws enthusiasts from across the globe, filling the skies with color. Farmers markets in the warmer months bring local produce, baked goods, and handmade crafts right into the heart of town, reinforcing the connection between residents and the region's agricultural roots. Of course, no coastal living is without its considerations. The Pacific Northwest climate means frequent rain, especially in fall and winter, and homes require diligent maintenance to withstand salt air and moisture. Insurance costs are moderate compared to hurricane-prone Gulf and Atlantic towns, but they're worth factoring in. That said, for buyers accustomed to overheated West Coast markets, Lincoln City's pricing feels like a rare reprieve, a chance to enjoy oceanfront living without surrendering your financial future. Ultimately, Lincoln City offers the kind of lifestyle balance that's increasingly hard to find: access to stunning, uncrowded beaches, a genuine sense of community, four-season livability, and a housing market that still has room for newcomers who aren't arriving with Silicon Valley or Los Angeles paychecks. For anyone who's ever dreamed of waking up to the sound of waves but assumed it was financially out of reach, this stretch of the Oregon coast quietly proves otherwise. Fernandina Beach, Florida. When most people think of Florida beach towns, they picture Miami's nightlife or Naples golf courses. Fernandina Beach, tucked away on Amelia Island in the state's northeast corner, is a completely different vibe. Historic, charming, and surprisingly affordable given its beauty and livability. The median home price here sits around $400,000, which might raise eyebrows for an affordable list. But in the Florida beach market, where comparable destinations often start in the 600,000s, Fernandina Beach is a relative bargain. Smaller single-family homes in older neighborhoods list for $300,000 to $350,000, and condos within walking distance to the beach can often be found in the mid-$200,000. Fernandina's history is part of what makes it so unique. The downtown area is lined with 19th century buildings, many of which now house cafes, boutiques, and galleries. The harbor is still active with shrimp boats, keeping the town's maritime heritage alive. Festivals are a big part of the local culture, from the Isle of Eight Flags Shrimp Festival to regular art walks and music events. The beaches themselves are long, wide, and much quieter than Florida's more tourist-heavy stretches. The Atlantic waters are warm in summer, and even in winter, the mild climate means you can stroll the sand without freezing. Outdoor lovers have access to state parks, kayak-friendly marshlands, and nearby golf courses. The cost of living is close to the national average, which is rare for a desirable Florida coastal town. Florida's lack of state income tax adds to the appeal, especially for retirees or remote workers who can bring income from elsewhere. While the area has seen steady population growth, it hasn't yet tipped into the overcrowded, high-rise dominated feel that plagues many Florida hotspots. Fernandina Beach manages to be a place where you can enjoy history, community, and nature without giving up the dream of living near the ocean. In a state where coastal property has become a luxury item, it's a refreshing reminder that the dream can still be attainable. Why these towns feel like beating the system. From Rockport, Texas, where the Gulf waters meet a thriving art scene, to Atlantic, North Carolina, where fishing culture keeps life simple and grounded, the thread that runs through each of these towns is accessibility, both in cost and lifestyle. Even places like Fernandina Beach, Florida, which by Florida standards is modestly priced, or Lincoln City, Oregon, which delivers Pacific views at a fraction of California's rates, prove that there are still corners of America where the beach is for everyone, not just the wealthy few. These towns also share another key trait. They're not the most obvious names in the coastal conversation. They aren't Miami or Malibu, Myrtle Beach or Maui. They're the places just a little off the mainstream radar, often with histories tied to fishing, shipping, or small-scale tourism. This relative anonymity is part of what keeps them affordable. Without the relentless hype of national media or the attention of international investors, they've been able to hold on to price points that seem almost anachronistic in today's market. It's also worth noting that affordable doesn't mean deprived here. In Bay Street, Lewis, you can walk from an art gallery to the marina without crossing a highway. In Ocean Springs, you can bike to the beach, stop at a local bakery, and end the day listening to live music under the oaks. In Gulfport, you can catch a ferry to a barrier island in the morning and be back in time for dinner at a seafood shack where the shrimp was caught that day. The value proposition goes beyond the initial purchase price. Lower property taxes in states like Mississippi and Texas, the absence of a state income tax in places like Florida and Texas, and generally lower costs for utilities, groceries, and insurance mean that your ongoing monthly expenses can drop significantly compared to big coastal cities. In some of these towns, the total cost of home ownership could be less than half what you'd pay just in rent for a small apartment in New York or Los Angeles. Of course, there are trade-offs. Some towns are small and require driving to reach larger hospitals or big box stores. Others face environmental challenges, like hurricanes or coastal erosion, that need to be factored into long-term planning. Jobs in these areas may pay less than national averages, so remote work or a portable income stream can be especially valuable. And as always with real estate, prices can change. Part of why it's worth acting while these markets are still under the radar. The clock, however, is ticking. As remote work becomes more common and Americans continue to rethink where and how they want to live, small coastal towns are attracting more attention. Every year that passes brings a little more competition, a little less inventory, and a little more upward pressure on prices. What's a scam-level deal today might simply be a good deal in 2 years and out of reach in 5. That's why the best time to explore these towns isn't someday, it's now. Book the trip, run the numbers, walk the neighborhoods, and imagine what life could look like when your backyard is a beach and your mortgage payment, if you even have one, doesn't keep you up at night. These places aren't unicorns. They're real, tangible communities, ready to welcome the next wave of residents who understand that living well doesn't have to mean spending big. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll be the one sitting on your porch, watching the tide roll in, shaking your head with a smile when someone asks, "How on earth did you afford to live here?"